Hello from wherever you're joining me, and today we're going to start Perek 4, and it's Daf 32 in Sanhedrin and the Steinslatz publication. So, it says here, you shall have one man of law, excuse me, as well as for the stranger, as for the homeborn, I am the Lord your God, in Leviticus 24:22, and then the congregation shall judge between the smiter and the redeemer of blood according to these ordinances. And the congregation shall deliver the manslaughter out of the hand of the redeemer of blood, and the congregation shall restore him to his city of refuge to where he fled, and he shall dwell therein until the death of the high priest who is anointed with the holy oil. And that's Numbers 35:24-25. The third chapter of this tractate addressed general matters with regard to court procedures. This chapter begins the discussion on the particular procedures in place with regard to cases of capital law, which is the primary focus of the tractate as a whole. There are fundamental differences between the procedures in place for cases of capital law and for those of cases of monetary law for several reasons. First and most obviously, because of the value of human life, the court must take care not to execute an innocent person. The Torah enjoins a court to attempt to acquit one accused of committing a transgression that results in court-imposed capital punishment. In the case of monetary law, in contrast, there are always two parties to the dispute. Any ruling to the benefit of one is to the detriment of the other, so the court has no reason to attempt to reach a specific verdict. Furthermore, it is noted that an incorrect judgment with regard to monetary matters can always be rectified in one manner or another, while death is irreversible. Another reason for the difference between two types of cases is that by definition, cases of monetary law address in matters that affect the structure of commerce in society. Adhering to excessively strict requirements of admission of evidence or testimony could lead to a breakdown of these dealings and harm one who is not able to take extreme precautions to protect his interests for the benefit of society, and necessary that judicial requirements concerning cases of monetary law be easier to meet. And the Mishnah followed by the Gemara discusses 10 differences between court procedures for cases of capital law and those for cases of monetary law. This is in addition to the requirement that cases of capital law be judged by a court of 23 judges, while cases of monetary law can be judged by a court of 3 judges, as stated in its first Mishnah in this tractate. So let's dive straight in. So, as I said before, Daf 32, Daf 32, Omd A. Echad dinei mamanos ve'echad dinei nafashos b'drisha u'b'chakiva shneimar mishpat echad yeh lachem. Both cases of monetary law, dinei mamos. So there's a footnote here, there's a note here for dinei mamonos. The Mishnah begins by mentioning cases of monetary law, despite the fact that it's clearer that inquiry and investigation are required in case of capital law. The reason is that this Mishnah follows the previous chapter, which has been discussing cases of monetary law, and that is from the Hammer Vayahai. In cases of capital law are equal with regard to the requirement for inquiry and interrogation. The Risha V'chakira. The distinction between inquiry and interrogation, questions posed to witnesses, will be discussed in the 5th chapter of this tractate, and that's from 40a. Of witnesses, as stated, you should have one manner of law, Leviticus 24:22, meaning that all the legal procedures must be uniform. Having stated the essential similarity between the two, the Mishnah enumerates the differences between them. What are the differences between cases of monetary law and cases of capital law? Ma bein v'chulu. What are the differences between, etc.? The Gemara in Tractate Makos 6b notes another difference between cases of monetary law and capital, namely whether the witnesses can testify when each witness saw the incident on his own. Nevertheless, this Mishnah lists only the differences with regard to the court proceedings on the part of judges, and that's from the Talmud Rebbeinu Peretz Hamavayhi. Ma bein dinei mamonos ledinei nefashos. What is the difference between the cases of monetary law and cases of capital law? Cases of capital law are judged by 23 judges. The court opened for deliberation by stating a reason to acquit the accused. Those present who are not judges are allowed to suggest only reasons for acquittal. the court issues a verdict that the accused is liable only by the majority of 2, the court does not reserve an acquittal. A judge who votes to acquit cannot then vote to find the accused liable. The court judges and issues a verdict during the daytime and does not issue a verdict that the accused is liable on the same day that the judge deliberated. All of these halachot do not apply to the case of money stolen according to the Mishnah and in its explanation in the Gemara. That's from the Rambam Sefer Shoftim Hilchot Sanhedrin 11:1. Cases of monetary law are judged by a court of 3 judges, and cases of capital law judged by a court of 23 judges. In case of monetary law, the court opens deliberations either with a claim to exempt the accused or the claim to find him liable. As in case of capital law, the court opens deliberation with a claim to acquit the accused, but does not open deliberation with a claim to find him liable. In case of monetary law, the court directs, issues the ruling based on a majority of 1 judge, either to exempt or to find liable. But in case of capital law, the court directs a judgment based on the majority of 1 judge to acquit, and based on the majority of 2 judges to find liable. So that's interesting that there's a difference between if the judging that the person is liable, which requires 2 judges, whereas to acquit it requires 1. In case of monetary law, the court brings the accused back to be judged if new evidence arises, either with a claim to exempt the accused or with a claim to find him liable. In case of capital law, the court brings the accused back to be judged, again with the claim to acquit him, but the court does not bring him back to be judged with a claim to find him liable. In case of monetary law, all those present at the trial may teach a reason to exempt a litigant or to find him liable. In case of capital law, all those present at the trial may teach a reason to acquit the accused, but not all present may teach a reason to find him liable. Only the judges can teach a reason to find him liable. In case of monetary law, one who initially teaches a reason to find the accused liable may then teach a reason to exempt him, and one who initially teaches a reason to exempt him may then teach a reason to find him liable. In case of capital law, one who initially teaches a reason to find him liable may then teach a reason to acquit, but one who initially teaches a reason to acquit may not return and teach a reason to find him liable. In case of monetary law, the court judges during the daytime and may conclude the deliberation and issue the ruling even at night. In case of capital law, the court judges during the daytime and concludes the deliberation and issues the ruling only in the daytime. In case of monetary law, the court may conclude the deliberations and issue the ruling even on that same day, whether to exempt the accused or to find him liable. In case of capital law, the court may conclude the deliberations and issue the ruling even on the same day to acquit the accused, but must wait until the following day to find him liable. Therefore, since capital cases might continue for 2 days, the court does not judge cases of capital law on certain days, neither on the eve of Shabbat nor on the eve of a festival. In case of monetary law, and likewise in case of ritual impurity and purity, Tumas v'hataharos, all ritual matters that are included in the Mishnah's category of ritual impurity, Shoshanim David. The judges commence expressing their opinions from the grace of the judges. In the case of capital law, judges commence issuing their rulings from the side where the least significant judge sits. All are fit to judge cases of monetary law, but not all are fit to judge cases of capital law. Only priests, Levites, and the Israelites who are of sufficiently fit lineage to marry their daughters to members of the priesthood are fit to judge cases of capital law. B'masim lacuna, based on its qualification, mamzeim and commerce are not eligible to judge cases of capital law. Rabbi Yohanan of Lanel notes that a priest is qualified of Jews of full lineage, a halal, is apparently disqualified as well, as the daughter may not marry a priest. See Kedushin 77a. The Mishnah teaches that cases of monetary law require inquiry and interrogation of the witnesses. The Gemara asks, do we require inquiry and interrogation in cases of monetary law? And the Gemara raises a contradiction from Brighton to Sefta, Marcos 1:2. With regard to a promissory note whose date is written on the 1st of Nisan of the sabbatical year, the witnesses came and said that to the signatory witnesses, how is it that you are testifying concerning this promissory note? But is it not so that on such a day on which the promissory note was written, you were with us in such and such a place? The promissory note is nevertheless valid. Steinslatz. The promissory note is valid. Signatory witnesses to a promissory note are not proven to be conspiring witnesses unless the court knows definitively that the promissory note was not post-dated. If there is no proof of this, then even if witnesses testified, signatory witnesses were with him elsewhere and the date the promissory note was written, the note is valid and the witnesses remain fit to bear witness, as perhaps the promissory note was post-dated. Say V'Shovim Hilchot Edut 19.3, Hilchot Mishpat 34.9, and its witnesses remain fit to bear witness. The reason they are not proven to have signed the promissory note falsely is that we are concerned that perhaps they delayed the motive, i.e. the loan was given on an earlier date and the promissory note was post-dated. The Gemara explains the contradiction. And if it enters your mind to say that we require inquiry and interrogation in case of monetary law, how are we concerned that perhaps they delayed? According to the question of the Gemara, the signatory witnesses themselves claim that the promissory note was post-dated, and the uncertainty of the Gemara is that perhaps they are telling the truth. According to the Gemara's conclusion that inquiry and interrogation are not required in the case of monetary law, the Brisa is saying that even in a case where signatory witnesses are not claiming it's post-dated, perhaps it may have been Silaran and the Binyan Shalom. The signatory witnesses will be asked on which day they signed the promissory note, and when that does not accord with what's written in the promissory note, the testimony will be disregarded. The Gemara counters, and according to your reasoning, and we do not require inquiry and interrogation in case of monetary law, the Mishnah elsewhere should pose a difficulty for you as well. As Mishnayot are more authoritative than Breitot, it's referred to the condition between two Mishnayot than to the condition between from a Breita to a Mishnah. The Mishnah teaches in Shavit 10.5, antedated promissory notes are not valid. Shitrei Chov Hamukdash Domim, an antedated promissory note are not valid for collecting named property sold by the debtor. The sages instituted that only unsold property can be collected with such a promissory note unless one unlawfully collects property sold by the debtor before the loan was granted. If a court is aware that the promissory note is antedated, they tear it and write a new one to prevent the creditor from using it improperly. Rabban Sefer Mishpatim, Hilchot Ma'av Velova 23.1, Shulchan Aruch Mishpat 43.7. And if it enters your mind to say that we require inquiry and interrogation in case of monetary law, and if there is a contradiction, the testimony is not accepted, why are post-dated promissory notes valid? The witness's testimony does not accord with that which is written in the document. The Gemara explains, this is not difficult. There is a reason why the contradiction was better from the Breita, not from the Mishnah. We are saying a stronger contradiction than the one from the Mishnah. As one sees in a Breita that even with regard to a promissory note written on the first of Nisan in the sabbatical year, the Meiri infers from the example of the Breita that if the promissory note is post-dated to the end of the sabbatical year, witnesses testified that the signatory witnesses had been with him on the day the promissory note was written. The court is concerned the testimony of signatory witnesses is false, and is not reasonable that one post-dated promissory note to the end of the sabbatical year, even if he wrote a possible, enabling to later collect the debt. When it is not common to find people to lend money, as all debts are cancelled at the close of the sabbatical year, where is it not reasonable to say that perhaps one delayed and wrote a promissory note, as one will not damage the promissory note by post-dating and still collecting the sabbatical year. Instead, since the sabbatical year cancels debt only at its close, we consider the promissory note is post-dated and we deem it valid. This is why the condition was made from a Breita, not from the Mishnah. The Gemara returns to this question. In any case, contradiction between the Mishnah and the Breita is difficult. The Gemara presents a mnemonic device for the following discussion, with each letter representing the name of a sage who suggests an answer. Het, Reish, Pei, Shin. The Gemara cites the first sentence. Rabbi Hanina says, by Torah law, both cases of monetary law and cases of capital law are equal with regard to inquiry and interrogation of witnesses. As stated, you should have one manner of law, Leviticus 24:22. And what is the reason that the sages said in the case of monetary law, we do not need inquiry and interrogation? By Torah law, the court must conduct an inquiry and interrogation of the witnesses both in case of monetary law and in case of capital law. The sages instituted an ordinance not to conduct an inquiry and interrogation of witnesses in case of monetary law, so as not to lock the door in the face of potential borrowers. Say V'Shoftim Hilchot Edut 3:1, Shulchan Aruch Mishpat 31. It is an ordinance instituted by the sages so as not to lock the door in the face of potential borrowers. The sages are concerned that intensive examination of witnesses would often result in contradictory testimony and would render it difficult for lenders to collect their debts. This could lead people to refrain from lending money. And the Gemara asks, and if that is so, that the sages remove the requirement for inquiry, interrogation, and monetary law, then if the judges urge that they should not need to pay the party they wronged, as they can claim that they prevented from examining the witnesses effectively, the Gemara answers, if that were to be the halacha, all the more so that it would lock the doors in the face of potential borrowers. Let's explain that. The Ran explained that this exchange in response to the previous stage of the discussion as follows. If there is a concern not to lock the door in the face of potential borrowers, the court should not have to pay for an error in judgment, as forcing the court to pay will discourage judges from hearing cases of monetary law, thereby causing people to be unwilling to lend money. The Gemara responds that, on the contrary, absolving the court of the requirement to pay the wrong party will lead to even fewer people willing to lend money. If people know that the courts are not responsible for an error in judgment, they will not be willing to lend money. Rabbi says the ruling of the Mishnah here that cases of monetary law, inquiry and interrogation are stated with regard to law of fines, not in the case of monetary law. And other sources, i.e. the Mishnah Tractate Shavuot and the Braita, which do not require inquiry and interrogation, are stated with regard to cases of admission and loans. The sages instituted that the court does not conduct an inquiry or interrogation of the witnesses in case of admission, loans, sales, and gifts. In case of fines and injuries, the court does not conduct an inquiry and interrogation of the witnesses in accordance with the explanation of Rava. 31, in which there is a cause to relax the procedure of deliberation as explained. Rav Papa says, this and that, both the Mishnah here and the other sources, are stated with regard to the cases of an admission and a loan. The distinction between them is that the Mishnah here, which was a case of monetary law requiring inquiry and interrogation, states with regard to a possibly fraudulent trial. Din maruma, din she'ena maruma. Does one note that in a case where the court is certain that the claim is fraudulent, the judges should rescue themselves from judging the case. Recuse himself from judging the case. Here the court merely suspects that it may be fraudulent, the judges are enjoined to investigate thoroughly. If it seems to the court that there are deceptive claims in the court that comes before it, the judges must conduct inquiry and interrogation according to the explanation of Rav Papa. Some hold that this inquiry and interrogation is not as thorough as the one concerning case of capital law, and the Knesset HaGadolah and the Koset HaChoshen hold that it is identical. Rambam Sefer Shoftim Hilchot Edut 3:2, Shulchan Aruch Mishpat 31, and Komnuma and Smala. And the court says that one party is defrauding the other party and have witnesses offer false testimony on their behalf. Then in the Braita and the Mishnah Tractate Shavuot, which don't require inquiry and interrogation, the ruling is stated with regard to trial that does not appear fraudulent. The distinction is in accordance with Reish Lakish, as Reish Lakish made the contradiction between two verses. it is written in one verse, in justice shall you judge your neighbor, Leviticus 19:5, and it is written in another verse, justice shall you follow, Deuteronomy 16:21, with the repetition indicating that it is not enough to merely judge with justice. He continues, how can these texts be reconciled? Here this latter verse is stated with regard to a possibly fraudulent trial, where the court must take extra care to judge with justice, and there the former verse is stated with regard to a trial that does not appear fraudulent. Rashi says, the ruling of the Mishnah here, that case of money law require inquiry and interrogation is as we answered, i.e. in accordance with any of the answers offered by the other Amoraim. And those verses are not stated with regard to fraudulent trials. Rather, one is stated with regard to judgment, in which the court must pursue justice extensively, and one is stated with regard to compromise. As is taught in the Bible, when the verse states, justice shall you follow, one mention of justice is stated with regard to judgment, and one is stated with regard to compromise. How so? Where there are two boats traveling on the river and they encounter each other, if both of them attempt to pass, both of them sink, as the river is not wide enough for both to pass. If they pass one after the other, both of them pass. And similarly, where there are two camels who are ascending the ascent of Beit Haran. So there's a little picture here of Beit Haran, which seems to be west of Jerusalem, where there's a narrow, steep path and encounter each other. If both of them attempt to ascend, both of them fall. If they ascend one after the other, both of them ascend. How does one decide which of them should go first? If there's one boat that is laden and one boat that is not laden, the needs of the one that is not laden should be overridden due to the needs of the one that is laden. If there's one boat that's close to destination, one boat that's not close to destination, the needs of the one that's close should be overridden due to the needs of the one that is not close. If both of them are close to the destinations, or both of them are far from the destination, impose a compromise between them. Hatepo shara benehen. Although a compromise must generally be agreed to by the litigants, in cases such as these, where there's an element of danger, the court can impose a compromise to its chaim. In the case of two boats or camels that cannot pass one another, there are several factors that determine which has precedence. The one bearing a load has precedence, and the closer to its destination has precedence. And if they equal these factors, the court imposes a compromise as to which one goes first and compensates the owner of the other. And that's from the Rambam Sefer Nezichin, Hilchot V'Seich, Shmut HaNefesh 13:12, Shulchan Aruch Mishpat 272:14. To decide which one goes first, and the owner of the boat pays a fee to the other one. The owner of the first boat compensates the owner of the boat that waits for any loss incurred. The sages taught, the verse states, justice shall you follow. This teaches that one should follow the best, most prestigious court of the generation. Halech Acha based in Yafa, in the present, the court greatest in wisdom, and the number of its generation has the status of the best court, and that's from the Smart Positive Mitzvah 97. And for example, follow after Rabbi Eliezer of Lod. After Eliezer to Lod. Although Rabbi Eliezer's teacher, Rabbi Yochanan, presided over an even greater court, those in the region Rabbi Eliezer were instructed to go to his court, the Liot Hayam. After Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai to Harayel. The sages taught, when the Gentile authorities issued decrees outlawing observance of the mitzvah, members of the Jewish communities divided clandestine ways of indicating observance of mitzvah to each other. For example, if one produces a sound of a millstone in the city of Beni, this is tantamount to announcing week of the sun, week of the sun. What does that mean? Shuvah Habein. There are sources that indicate that they would have a feast upon the birth of a daughter as well. Accordingly, perhaps it tells the most read week of the son, week of the daughter, Galiyot Hayam. There will be a circumcision. If one displays a light of a lamp in a city called Beroha Ayel, Beroha Ayel was a city in southern Eretz Yisrael, 14 kilometers southwest of Ashkelon. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai moved to the town after a stay in Yavne. The Gemara here refers to a decree imposed by the Emperor Hadrian in the 2nd century that forbade Jewish marriage rights. The inhabitants of the town would place a lamp in the window as a sign of a covert marriage. In May of 1948, a modern kibbutz, Ber Ha'ayel, was founded at the ancient site. The practice of lighting candles at weddings continues to this day in many communities. It is customary to carry lit candles before a bride and groom, says Iran. Although the decree of the Gentiles was annulled, the practice was not discontinued. This tantamount to announcing there is a wedding feast there. The sages taught. The verse states, justice shall you follow. This teaches that one should follow the sages to the academy. This map indicates several of the well-known centers of Torah and the seats of the sages in Eretz Yisrael. In addition, the term exile, Gola, refers to Babylonia, where Nisivin was located, though Rome is almost certainly a great city in Italy, although some claim that the word refers to the town of Rome in the Galilee. So it has a map here: Pekian, Akko, Shigne, Sipori, Tiberias, Beis Shiarim, Bnei Brak, Lod, Yavna, Jerusalem, Ashkelon, Bohael, the seats of the sages and the great centers of Torah. For example, where they are found. For example, follow after Rabbi Eliezer to Lod, and Rabbi Yochanan to Bohael, after Rabbi Yeshua to Pekian, after Rabbi Gamliel to Yavna, and after Rabbi Akiva to Bnei Brak, after Rabbi Matya to Romi, after Rabbi Hanani ben Tarajon to Zigne, after Rabbi Yossi to Zipporah, after Rabbi Yehuda ben Batira to Nisivin, after Rabbi Yeshua to the exile Gola, I Babylonia, after Rabbi Yehuda Nasi to Beis Shiarim, and after the sages in the time of the temple to the chamber of the hewn stone. What's the hewn stone? Acha Chachamim, the Lishkas Hagazis. In other words, even if there are great sages elsewhere, the primary court of that is that of the Sanhedrin in the chamber of the hewn stone, and that's from the Yavits. The Mishnah teaches that in cases of monetary law, the court opens deliberation either the claim to exempt the accused or the claim to find him liable. In cases of capital law, the court opens the deliberation of the claim to acquit the accused, but does not open deliberation of the claim to find him liable. The Gemara asks, how do we say this opening stage of deliberation? In other words, with what claim does the court begin deliberating? Rabbi Yehuda said, we say to the witnesses, who says that the event occurred as you said? Perhaps you heard. Ula said to him, by confronting the witnesses in the manner we silence them, the witnesses will think that the court suspects them of lying, and they will not testify. Rabbi Yehuda said to him, and let them be silenced. Isn't it taught in Abad Tosefta 9:1? Rabbi Shimon ben Eliezer, in case of capital law, the court brings the witnesses from one place to another place. Mesim es ha'edim. When taking the witnesses in the cases of capital law, judges change their line of inquiry several times in attempt to confuse them. And say V'shovtim Hilchat Edut 1:4. Mesin es ha'edim mimokum l'mokum. The Rambam and the Ravid appear to have a different version of the text of the Gemara, which states that the court would attempt to confuse the witnesses by constantly changing their line of inquiry, to confuse them so that they will not retract their testimony if they are lying. The Gemara rejects this argument. On halachot comparable, there where Rabbi Shimon ben Eliezer says to bring the witnesses from place to place, the witnesses are repressed by themselves, whereas here, we present by direct action, and the court should not do so. Rather, Ula says, we say this to the accused. Do you have witnesses to determine that the witnesses testified against you are conspiring witnesses? Rabbi said to him, but do we open the deliberation with a claim to acquit the accused in liability of this one? The witnesses. This testimony can lead to witnesses incurring liability for the testimony. The Gemara questions Rabbi's assumption But is this to the liability of the witnesses? But didn't we learn in the mission in Makkah 5 because conspiring witnesses are not killed? Witnesses do not receive any punishment unless they are the conspiring witnesses after the verdict has been issued concerning the one about whom they testified. When they for sure me هاخد ايدك. Do you want to finish? 38. For the testimony until the verdict of the one concerning whom they testified is issued. Therefore, they will be shown to be conspiring witnesses at the early proceedings. They will not be liable. The Gemara states Rabbi's objection. This is what I say. If the accused would be silent until the verdict is issued and then bring witnesses, and the court determines them to be conspiring witnesses, it will be found that the statement of the court is to the liability of this one, the witnesses. But the Rabbi says, we do not say to the accused, you have witnesses to contradict them. If the first witnesses are contradicted as to the fact of the case, no one is liable. Rav Kahana said, we say to the witnesses, based on your statements, so and so is acquitted. If the court issues a pro forma declaration that it is possible to find a reason to acquit based on the testimony of the witnesses, and they begin the deliberations, Abai and Rav both say, we say to the accused, for example, if you did not kill anyone, do not fear. In case of capital, the court opened deliberation by stating to the accused, if you did not commit the transgression of which you are accused, you have nothing to fear. This is according to the explanation of Abai and Rava, as they are Amoraim of a later generation, and the Bride supports explanation. Rava say for Shoftim, Sanhedrin 10:4, and the consequence of these procedures, as you will be acquitted. Ravashi says, the court announces, whoever knows of a reason to acquit the accused should come and teach the reason concerning him. The Gemara comments, it is taught in Abai in accordance to the explanation of Abai and Rava. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says, the priest administering the sota rite to the sota says to her, if no man is slain with you, and if you have not gone astray to impurity while under your husband, you will be free from this water of bitterness that causes the curse. But if you have gone astray while under your husband, Numbers 5:19-20, the priest first states the scenario in which the woman is innocent of adultery. So I hope this made sense, and wish you a very good day. Take care. All the best in all your endeavors. All the best. Bye.